Welcome to the First 90 Days, Proven Strategies for Getting Up to Speed Faster and Smarter webinar series. Today we'll talk about some recommended strategies for your first 90 days of employment based on Michael Watkins' book, The First 90 Days. The book has a lot more detail than what we'll go into, but for today's purpose, there are 5 areas where we'll focus as it pertains to your new role in the organization and leading in your organization, whether it be in a formal leadership role or as an informal leader. Today we'll briefly discuss why the first 90 days are crucial to success, how to prepare yourself for your new role, how to accelerate your learning, negotiate success, and secure early wins. So why are the first 90 days crucial? Every transitional period or transition is the critical time during which small changes and important actions can have a big influence on the final result. Author of the book, Michael Watkins, says the first 90 days are critical because people are forming impressions of you and your ability to be a leader, and often doing that with very little information. They are forming impressions of you based on early actions you take, or for that matter, don't take. It's therefore essential you connect with members in the organization early on and think about how you're going to create credibility and connections. Transitions into new roles are defining moments for your effectiveness. People begin to form opinions surprisingly quickly. Once formed, they're hard to change the momentum you build early on and can propel you through the rest of your tenure in your new role. However, if you get into trouble early, downward spirals can be very difficult to reverse. By following the first 90 days transition roadmap, you will avoid making early mistakes and get up to speed faster and better in your new role. It will help you to do the right things at the right times to lay the foundation for your success. The 3 Ds: diagnose the situation, define your goals, and deliver results provide a framework for doing this in your first 90 days. Diagnose the situation. What do you fundamentally need to know about the new organization, and how are you most efficiently and effectively going to do it? Define your goals. Figuring out where you need to go and in what time period. What is your vision for how you're going to succeed in and support the organization? What goals are you going to achieve? How are you going to measure success? Delivering results, creating momentum. It's about identifying those crucial early wins and beginning to organize to achieve them so that people get a sense that good things are happening in the organization. Putting these 3 together, diagnosing the situation, defining your goals, and delivering results, provide a roadmap for what you really need to accomplish in the first 90 days. Preparing yourself for the new role. You want to prepare yourself mentally for the new role. The first step towards a successful transition is for you to mentally prepare yourself for this new role by letting go of the past and accepting your new duties and responsibilities. You need to have a good mental starting point. The biggest common problem with a mental shift is the conviction that you'll be successful in the new position if you just do the same things you did before. Usually, any sort of new role will require some new skills. Changing your mentality has to be strategic and first includes an evaluation of your weaknesses and advantages, so a SWOT analysis in other words, depending on the abilities that the new position demands. An important part of the new mindset is also building a new network of supporters and making the fastest possible evaluation of who in the organization could hinder your success. There's always someone in the organization who doesn't want you to progress. With a mental shift, you jump over the obstacles that lie ahead of you. These obstacles always exist, which is why we're talking about the path, not the goal in this case. Action item number 1. Prepare a personal SWOT analysis for your new position. Action number 2. Prepare a list of supporters, opponents, and persuadables. But who are these people? For supporters, you want to look for people who share your vision for the future. If you see a need for change, look for others who have pushed for similar changes in the past. You also want to look for people who have been quietly working for change on a small scale, or people new to the company who have not yet become acculturated to its mode of operations. Opponents. True adversaries will oppose you no matter what you do. They may resist your agenda because they resist change, or fear looking incompetent, or they feel threats to their core values or power. And the persuaders, those are people who are indifferent or undecided about your plans and ideas. There may be ways to get them to support your agenda, and you may be able to educate them on your goals. Action item number 3, prepare a list of actions that you will stop doing, start doing, and continue doing. Let's talk about accelerating your learning. Successful and effective learning decreases the time frame of your vulnerability. This is why you need an incredible strategic plan of what and how you will learn. If you don't acquire enough knowledge about the organization and its business operations, you can set wrong hypotheses, which are fatal for the company and, quite frankly, your career. Usually, the biggest challenge in learning is running out of time, but being too busy for learning often leads to the spiral of death. If you don't learn enough, you make bad decisions. Bad decisions lead to a bad mark in credibility. Consequently, people share less information with you, and this leads to even worse decisions. Successful and effective learning means that you first find out what you truly need to learn. What makes most sense is to prepare a list of things you have to know. The list of things has to refer to the past as well as to the present and future of the organization. A suitable plan has to include what you will learn and how. External information sources for your learning are customers, distributors, suppliers, analysts. Internal information sources are development engineers, sales, and other staff. You shouldn't forget about integrators and old-timers who reflect the company's natural history. Accelerated learning also has to include getting to know the organization's culture. Negotiating success. Ultimately, you want to build a productive relationship with your boss, and this means engaging in the right conversations. Michael Watkins talks about 5 conversations that you need to plan for. The situational diagnosis conversation. In this conversation, you'll seek to understand how your new boss sees the business situation. Is it a turnaround, a startup, a realignment, or a sustaining success situation? How did the organization reach this point? What factors, both soft and hard, make the situation a challenge? What resources within the organization can you draw upon? Your view may differ from your boss's, but it's essential to grasp how he or she sees the situation. The expectations conversation. Your agenda in this conversation will be to seek to understand and negotiate expectations. What does your new boss need you to do in the short term and in the medium term? What will constitute success? How will your performance be measured, and when? You might conclude that your boss's expectations are unrealistic and that you need to work to reset them. Also, as part of your broader campaign to secure early wins, keep in mind that it's better to underpromise and overdeliver. The resource conversation. This conversation is essentially a negotiation for critical resources. What is it that you will need to be successful? What do you need your boss to do? The resources in question need not be limited to funding or personnel. The style conversation. This conversation is about how you and your new boss can best interact on an ongoing basis. What form of communication does he or she prefer? Face-to-face, in writing, by voicemail or email? How often? What kinds of decisions does he or she want to be consulted on? And when can you make the call on your own? How do your styles differ? And what are the implications of your differences for how you should interact? Personal development conversation. Finally, discuss how your tenure in this job will contribute to your personal development. In what areas do you need to improve? Are there projects or special assignments you could undertake without sacrificing focus? Are there courses or programs that would strengthen your capabilities? In practice, your dialogue about these subjects will mingle threads and evolve over time. You might address several of the 5 issues in a single meeting, or you might work out issues related to one subject through a series of brief exchanges. Securing early wins. Michael Watkins, in an article for HBR, wrote, "Every year, thousands of managers make traditions into new jobs. The actions that they and other new leaders take during their first few months have a big impact on the success or failure. Transitions are also times when organizations can be reshaped, in part because everybody's expecting a change. But there are also periods when new leaders are most vulnerable because they lack detailed knowledge of the new role and haven't established new working relationships. So what does it take to make a successful transition? In hundreds of interviews Michael conducted with experienced managers and in years of consulting work, he and his colleague distilled the answers into a set of basic principles for taking charge. The single most important principle: get early wins to build momentum fast. To secure early wins, a leader should establish A-item priorities, the major objectives that you would accomplish in the first couple of years. That lets you determine goals for the first few months in the context of these longer-term objectives. When you set out to get some early wins, you can simultaneously move the organization towards the longer-term goals. Identify a center of gravity, one and only one key area or process where early wins are probable. The chosen center of gravity must be an area that is important and that allows for substantial performance improvement. Initiate pilot projects. Specific initiatives within the center of gravity to secure early wins. Implementation plans for the projects should define the standards to be used, the resources needed, and the methodologies to be employed while specifying both tangible and intangible goals. How early wins are achieved is also important. Beyond tangible results, pilot projects should create new models of behavior consistent with the new leader's vision of how the organization should work. This means involving the right people, defining stretch goals, marshaling resources, setting deadlines, pushing for results, and then rewarding successes. The overarching goal is to set up a virtuous cycle, building from modest early improvements to more fundamental ones in ways that reinforce desired behaviors. At the same time, early wins must be achieved in ways that are consistent with the culture of the organization. In some businesses, this means low-key collaboration. In others, high-profile, individually driven success. Whatever the case, the new leader must understand the culture well enough to recognize what will count as a win and what won't. Finally, success in getting early wins is built on a foundation of effective learning early on. Because the new leader's situation is fraught with complexities and uncertainties, efficient learning during the transition is vital. Success in identifying where and how to take those early shots is a function not only of technical understanding, but also of insight into culture and politics of the organization. Early wins increase your credibility, so let's talk about that. After the end of a transitional period, you want your colleagues to think that something new and positive has happened and that you're making a difference. Avoid early defeats is equally as important as securing early wins, as you don't want to negatively impact any future development. The most frequent reasons behind early defeats are that you don't focus, don't make a good assessment of the situation, and don't create a suitable strategy. Don't adapt to a new culture, don't reach the results that the boss expects, and reach results following the principle of the goal is more important than the means, which makes you lose a large measure of credibility. For early wins, you have to plan the waves of change, which include learning, forming the change, ensuring suitable support for the change, implementation, and observing results. If you carry out too many changes too quickly, that's an excellent recipe for burnout in people, and you also never truly know what actually works and what doesn't. You ensure early wins most easily if you have a list of priorities that you tackle with a suitable strategy. The true purpose of the first 90 days is to build personal credibility and new positive momentum in the organization. New leaders usually increase their credibility if they're demanding but can be satisfied. approachable but not familiar, determined but reasonable, focused but flexible, and if they're prepared to make difficult decisions that are also humane. Early wins mean implementing change. Every change demands passing through 6 stages. The realization of a big enough critical mass that change is needed, suitable diagnosis of what needs to be changed and why, new vision supported with a suitable strategy, detailed planning and ensuring strong enough support of key people and infrastructure for implementing the change. So let's do a quick recap. Preparing yourself means making a mental break from your old job and preparing to take charge in the new one. Perhaps the biggest pitfall you face is assuming that what has made you successful to this point will continue to do so. The dangers of sticking with what you know, working extremely hard at doing it, and failing miserable are all very real. Accelerate your learning. You need to climb the learning curve as fast as you can in your new organization. This means understanding its market, products, technologies, systems, and structures, as well as its culture and politics. Learning about a new organization can feel like drinking from a fire hose. You must be systematic and focused about deciding what you need to learn and how you will learn it most efficiently. Early wins build your credibility and create momentum. They create virtuous cycles that leverage the energy you put into the organization to create a pervasive sense that good things are happening. In the first few weeks, you need to identify opportunities to build personal credibility. In the first 90 days, you need to identify ways to create value and improve business results that will help you get to the break-even point more rapidly. And finally, negotiating success. Because no other single relationship is more important, you need to figure out how to build a productive working relationship with your new boss or bosses and manage his or her expectations. This means carefully planning for a series of critical conversations about the situation, expectations, working style, resources, and your personal development. Crucially, it means developing and gaining consensus. And remember the most important conversations. The situational diagnosis seeks to understand how your new boss sees the business situation. Expectation conversation, how you seek to understand and negotiate expectations. The resources conversation, what is it that you will need to be successful? What do you need your boss to do? The style conversation, how you and your new boss can best interact on an ongoing basis, and what form of communication he or she prefers. And finally, personal development, how your tenure in this job will contribute to your personal development.